Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I think we have a really nice, healthy participation today. So that's always encouraging for us. But welcome. Thank you for taking the time. So today's topic is curriculum and subject selections. So who we are, for those of you who might have found us on LinkedIn and not aware. So my name is Ramya Modukuri, and Sapna and I are running Guiding Teens, which is a community-first space for Indian parents to receive unbiased practical advice to plan their teens' future. And really, it is not about cross-selling or a sales pitch for something else. This is truly what it is. It is information to help you help your team make better choices, right? And today we have two of our favorite people, and actually more of our favorite people are also on the call with us. But our special guest counselors today are Ms. Pragati Pandey and Ms. Khushbu Taparia Bedi. So I won't go into too much detail. They're both active on LinkedIn. They put out wonderful materials. So please, a shout out to go follow them on LinkedIn. And as you can see, both of them bring very, very rich experience in counseling. Pragati is one of the OGs in this space. Truly, many of us have learned from her. She's been a mentor to many, and so whatever school you're in, it's likely that the counselor has learned from Pragati. So she especially brings a lot of depth in the IB space, having been in the space for nearly 25 years. And Khushbu again is somebody who's also shout out to her Insta. She does a lot of work on Insta, so please go follow her there. She does put out a lot of good material, and Khushbu works with the Sanskar Valley School and has deep expertise in ISC. Her school also runs the Cambridge curriculum. And then Sapna, of course, has worked in the CBSE system for many years, and now her school also runs Cambridge. And I worked for the last 8 years in schools that had a combination of both CBSE and Cambridge, and now I work for an IB MYP school. So together, we are pretty well versed in the national and the international boards, which we'll be covering today. So this is roughly the flow we will dedicate. So this session is going to go till 5:30. We will leave from about 5:10 to 5:30 for questions. But before that, this is the flow. We'll go through a very brief overview of the boards, and then the bigger time will be spent on helping you with the guidance part of it. And so with that, I will hand it over to Sapna.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to add a little qualification. So my son has done the IB board, and both my kids have done Cambridge 9th and 10th, and then switched several boards. So I think as a parent, you get another perspective altogether on the boards, right? So just wanted to add. Then I think that's true for all of us. Our kids have done various boards. Yeah. Just to kind of give you an overview of what are we considering in the national boards, broadly, today we're going to be talking about the CBSE and the CISCE, which is basically the ICSE board as most people refer to it. There are also the state boards. So almost every state of India has its own board that we're not covering today. There's also the National Open School. Again, something we're not covering today, but if you have any pressing questions about them, please feel free to ask them later, because we do know a little bit about both of those. In the CBSE, for those of you not familiar, there's the 10th exam, that is the board exam, and the 12th board exam. The nomenclature is kind of complicated, very little difference between the two, doesn't matter, but the 10th CBSE and the 12th exam. In the ICSC, there's the ICSC, the 10th exam, and then there's the ISC, which is the 12th board exam. These are the most popular. The ISC board also offers a vocational education certificate. Usually, most schools are not offering it, so we're not going to be covering that in depth today. Let's go to the next slide. In the international boards, the four broad ones, there are many international boards, of course, but the four broad ones that have some presence in India at the moment are the Cambridge, the IB, or the International Baccalaureate. There's also the American High School Diploma. A couple of schools offer it, not too many. And then there's the advanced placement exams. Some schools offer it, but a lot of kids are taking the advanced placement exams separate, independently. And we can talk a little about that later if you have questions. but we are going to be focusing on the Cambridge board and the IB board because those are the ones that are most popularly offered and the most popularly taken in India right now. The Cambridge board has two board exams. So there's the 10th, which is the IGCSE. It's like a board exam in the sense it's a central exam. Cambridge, even for 11th and 12th, has the 11th has an exam called AS level exams, and the 12th have A level exams. Together, they make the A levels. And when Ramya will be covering the Cambridge, she will explain that in detail. And the IB has the PYP, which is the primary years program till grade 5th, and then it has the middle years program, 7th to 10th, and Pragati will cover that. And then there's the 11th and 12th, which is the IBDP, which is what we're going to be focusing on today. We can move to the next. Okay, talking about the CBSE, I'll keep it really brief because mostly everybody does understand the CBSE. Overall, a child in 11th and 12th is required to have 5 subjects. That's mandatory. A 6th subject can be taken. It's optional, not required. In the mandatory subject, one subject has to be either Hindi or English. In most of the schools that our kind of kids go to, it's usually English, but it can easily be Hindi also, either of the two. In subject 2 group, you can have either academic electives, which is basically maths, sciences, humanities, any of those subjects, or from the language group. So you can take more than one language. You can do French, German, Spanish. So overall, CBSE actually offers 30 academic electives, 31 languages, and 42 skill subjects. Obviously, no school offers all of these. Every school picks and chooses certain subjects from each of these groups and offers it. So regardless of what CBSE is offering, your actual choices depend on the school that you're going to. What is your school offering, right? But from CBSE side, there's one big myth usually that's in CBSE, you have to choose a stream. Actually, the board itself does not say anything about streams. The board is very happy if a child wants to take, say, a biology, an economics, and Japanese. So the board has no problem with any kind of random selection of subjects as long as this is followed, which is very broad. So it's usually the schools which kind of limit it to subject choices depending on what they are willing to offer in the timetables. Okay. Then it's a 2-year curriculum, as you know, 11th and 12th, with the board exam in 12th. 20 to 30% is internally assessed by the school. 70 to 80% is assessed through a centrally conducted board exam. The passing percentage is 33%. I think the only thing we need to kind of focus on here is in 10th, a student can choose to either do basic math or standard math. Standard math has always existed. It's the regular math that they offer. Basic math, the syllabus is the same as standard math, only the way the questions are asked is simpler. So the syllabus is the same, only the way that you're assessed is different. In 11th and 12th, we offer 2 kinds of math. It's called math and applied math. Applied math has lesser engineering related math, so lesser trigno, lesser this thing, but basically 2 kinds of math that they offer. They right now don't offer any other levels, but from 2026, they've said that they're going to offer 2 levels in science, social science also. It hasn't happened yet, but they're talking about it. We can move to the next, which is ICSE board, and Khushbu will cover that. Oh, sorry. Okay. So CBSE benefits and challenges. I think one of the biggest benefit of CBSE is that there's excellent depth and rigor for STEM, especially for science and math programs, I mean. It's very much aligned with the Indian competitive exams. So the JEE, the NEET, CLAT, any of those exams, the CVT, all of them take their curriculum from the CBSE. Curriculum is quite concise. It's very structured. The syllabus is literally given in the books that you are recommended to read. So there is not too much of extra reading or extra research required. It is accepted worldwide almost. only a couple of highly selective universities may have certain problems, and we will cover that later. But by and large, it's accepted everywhere. And the board allows students to choose subjects freely. There are very few rules and regulations the board has in place. What's not so great about CBSE is that it's not accepted by, when we say Cambridge here, we mean the University of Cambridge. That's one university only. Oxford accepts CBSE as it is. And some medical colleges in UK and Ireland may not accept CBSE for their medicine programs. US universities do not offer credit for Indian boards, CBSE as well as ICSE, except two universities now. Northeastern has started to offer. University of California is talking about it, and they will be offering credit for physics, chemistry, and math in CBSE, but also for social sciences that they're thinking about it. There's not as much exposure to writing and research. And I think one of the other one of the other shortcoming is that they offer all subjects at the same level. So a student wants to take, say, math at a higher level, there's nothing like a higher level of any subject, at least as of now, though CBSE is talking about rectifying that to ICSC. Khushbu.
Yeah. Thank you, Sapna. So now coming to ISC. ISC generally students study 5 subjects with one English or newly introduced modern English as mandatory. And then they have elective 2 to elective 5. So 4 electives, but these are all academic electives. Now, some schools also offer a 6th subject, which is also an optional academic elective. Our school doesn't offer it, but some schools might be doing that. There is one more element of SUPW and community service, which is socially useful, productive work. But these are only internal grades. They do not have marks on the final mark sheet. Only grades are written on the final mark sheet. Now, this is a 2-year curriculum with 25 plus electives. Like Sapna said, it really depends on the school. What subjects, what electives is your school offering? You have to choose amongst that. One new thing that ISC has initiated this year is, core versus applied math. So core is of course more towards engineering and applied is more business mathematics. I checked with teachers, I spoke to a lot of students, and I got a feeler that, a lot of students, like a parent has asked also this question here, that is applied math easier? So I would say it is not at all easy. It is equally difficult. It's just that the topics are different from core math. So for a commerce student, applied math will also be difficult, and my students are finding it difficult to score as well. So if your child has any challenge with math, then you want to take like a like a math check before you actually decide on taking applied math, though it is highly recommended to keep math in 11th and 12th. Okay, one very interesting thing that ISC offers is that a student can opt out of math and sciences, that is physics, chemistry, bio, and mathematics in grade 9. So you can completely switch to commerce economics in grade 9th itself. Of course, the recommendation is to keep your sciences till 10th at least, but there are a lot of children now opting out of that, but at least do keep math as a subject till 10th and then again decide in grade 11th. Pass score is 35% in all the 5 subjects, and 10% marks are from the internal labs and assessments in ISC. Board results contain percentage, and also there is a grading scale of 1 to 9, 1 being the highest. Yeah, can we go to the next slide, please? So let's understand what are the benefits. So see, ISC board definitely has more depth and rigor compared to CBSE. So when we did like a mapping of these two boards, interestingly, the topics were the same, almost the same, but the depth in those topics were deeper in ISC. So it definitely aligns you to prepare for all the competitive private exams, but I will say that a lot of parents feel that ISC board also students can equally be prepared to write NEET and JEE and prepare in an integrated way, but I don't think so, because I see a lot of challenge with my students, and it's highly recommended that you reconsider, because some students with very very high academic rigor can still manage, but a lot of children still face a lot of challenge while balancing ISC board because of the depth that it has. Okay, tutoring is very affordable for ISC and CBSC. It's easily available also. And one very interesting thing is that if the child wants to score up till 75%, I think an average kid will be able to cope and score this much of grades here. But if you want to aspire to score higher than 75%, then definitely the board will challenge you. I think it is the same for every board, but at least average level scores very easily doable if the child is regular with academics, because a lot of parents come to us and ask, in which board will my child will be able to score higher and better. So this is the answer to those parents. And again, this is accepted worldwide, with again the same exception of Cambridge University and some medical colleges in UK and Ireland. um, Yes, this is true that the exposure to writing and research in ISC is slightly low compared to Cambridge and IB, but I would say it is one step up from CBSC. Yeah, thank you so much, and over to you, Ramya. Oh, okay,
Okay.
Pragati. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good evening. And so lovely to see so many of my colleagues on this call, as well as all the parents. So I'll talk a bit about the IB program. So as you can see, it is circular. The diagram reflects the entire program and shows the interconnectedness of all the aspects of the IB. There are multiple slides. Don't get worried. I've just split them into more slides for readability. Ramya, can we go to the next slide? Okay, so IB diploma program actually is a 2-year program, primarily equal to grade 11 and 12 in all the other curriculums. So anybody can, do the IB diploma program from any curriculum, and meant for students of the age group 16 to 19. The difference is that it balances out academic and skill-based development both. And just like any other curriculum, they also have a final board written examination at the end of the program. So schools, some of them, like India, they have their final exams in May, whereas some schools which run the January to December term, like in Australia or New Zealand, would have their final exams in November. But if you're looking at India, it is most of the time the May session. Let's go to the next. This is slightly dense and confusing. So IB diploma has two parts to it. There are academic subjects where students have a choice, and then there is a core component to it. So let's talk first about the core component. The core component means that it is compulsory. Every student has to do this irrespective of what subjects they take. So there is theory of knowledge, which is, in a very layman's way of saying it, the philosophy of all different subjects. So it could have art, it could have science, it could have math, humanities, all subjects get covered, but it is more of understanding how knowledge is created. The second part is the extended essay, which is like a research piece. So students will pick up a subject of their choice and a topic within it. With the help of a supervisor in school, they would write a research, a mini research, similar to what they would do at university. It is roughly 4,000 words. And then there is creativity, action, and service, similar to the SUPW that ISC has. It's just that there has to be all three elements. There has to be volunteering and service. There has to be some kind of action and physical work, and there has to be some creative things done. And there's no fixed hours there. And beyond these, then comes the choices of 6 subjects. Unlike other curriculums, IB does its marking out of 7 points. So it's not like 100%. It is the maximum you can get is 7 points. The student has a choice of choosing standard levels and higher levels. There's no major difference in difficulty level. The number of hours are more or less. So a standard level subject is actually taught for 150 hours across 2 years, and a higher level subject is taught for 240 hours across 2 years, which basically means that you study more topics in a higher level subject and less topics in a standard level subject. And most of the times the topics are overlapping. So HL does extra topics and SL does lesser number of topics. The maximum number of points that the student can obtain is 45, of which 42 normally, since this is different from all the other curriculums, 42 points come from the academic areas and 3 come from the compulsory core area. Now, creativity, action, and service is really not marked. So the points are coming from theory of knowledge and extended essay and is based on their performance there. They have to do an exhibition in theory of knowledge and they have to write an essay in theory of knowledge. So the marks come from there. Let's move to the next thing. Again, please don't go by the numbers, okay? In a very simple, way of understanding, all students will do a language which is their primary language, which could be German actually in Germany, but in the Indian context, students normally do English language and literature. So group 1 is actually language and literature component, and they are known as language A. It is compulsory across all IB schools to do at least one language A, until and unless they are in a non-native English-speaking space where they might be doing English B, but they might be doing, say, French A. So it could be reversed. But in the Indian context, IB students would be doing language A as English, and then they might be doing a second language A, which could be Hindi, especially if you are from the northern part of India. They would be doing Hindi language and literature as well. So they can be doing 2 subjects from group 1. In group 2, depends if they are doing French, Spanish, German, any other language which is not their first language, and it becomes acquisition and is known as language B or ab initio in the IB language. Then the group 3 is individuals and societies, which is humanities or social sciences. Group 4 are the traditional sciences, physics, chemistry, bio, environmental sciences, and now we also have computer science there. Group 5 is maths, which is compulsory for all IB students to do. And then group 6 are creative subjects, which could be visual art, it could be filmmaking. There are multiple subjects in creative arts too. So when a student has to choose, it is compulsory to choose 2 languages. One is English and one is another one. It is compulsory to choose 1 social science or individuals and societies subject. It is compulsory to choose 1 science and 1 math. HL and SL depends on the requirements and the potential of the child. The 6th subject can be creative, or the child can choose an extra science or an extra humanities, depending on what they plan to study in the future. So a total of 6 subjects across the groups. But it is possible that the student may have group 1, 3, 4, and 5 and nothing from group 2 and 6. that's very much possible. So it's not compulsory. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. There's a lot of conversation about recognition. Now, of course, there's more knowledge, especially the MYP, which is the grade 10 board exams. Some schools do not offer the 10th grade board exams in the IB curriculum, and some do offer. They are online exams known as e-assessment. And if they complete that, it is considered equivalent to grade 10 of any board in India and is recognized by the Association of Indian Universities with the e-assessment or without the e-assessment. They get internal grades and a transcript from the IB, and it's equivalent and recognized by the universities in India and worldwide. And the diploma program, again, is recognized worldwide as long as they have 24 points and have done 3 higher level and 3 standard level subjects, again recognized by the Association of Indian Universities and okay for admission to any public or private university in India. They would need to meet the prerequisites, which we will talk about later. Yep. Okay. A lot of strengths. It's a really popular program. It is known for its breadth and rigor because it is more holistic. You do a humanities, you do a science, you do languages, and you also do math. And you're also delving into research and writing. So it is pretty holistic. So that's its strength. There's academic and, non-academic rigor too. You do get a lot of advanced credit in North America, which is Canada and US both. Transfer credit basically means that you get exempted from studying certain portions of the curriculum in the first year of university. Again, it depends from university to university what their policy is. It develops a lot of skills beyond the traditional academic skills, which is analytical skills, critical thinking, communication, time management. They do a lot of internal assessments and independent research. So how to manage their time, and it helps them to balance across academic and non-academic because they're doing a lot of service, which is beyond the school. They're also, compulsory to play sports or do something physical. Again, that works for them. So these are some of the strengths of the program, but there are a lot of challenges as well. As we are talking, it's about fit, finding what is right for each child. One shoe may not fit everybody, right? So IB also has its share of challenges and limitations. The workload is very heavy because there are 6 core subjects, and then beyond that, there are compulsory core components. So naturally, it is, something which requires more time and more, time management skills both. It is not very structured and hence not for a student who has an exam-focused learning style. The quality of the IB program varies across India from different schools. So there you might want to, do a bit of more research about which school fits your child's needs better. Fees is always much, much higher than the national curriculum. Sometimes it can be 10 times, 15 times, 20 times higher, depending on the school that you are choosing. They are not prepared for the entrance exams, whether it is the Indian traditional entrance exams like JEE or NEET, or even the SATs. The curriculum doesn't prepare them for entrance examinations. It is always a separate endeavor. They cannot take 3 sciences except through a special approval system. Then it is known as, an irregular diploma rather than the IB diploma. You do not get a lot of tutors and specialists in India who can, support you beyond the classroom. Of course, there are, a lot of them available, not enough to cater to every student who's studying in an IB curriculum. And the subject combinations are limited by schools. So the schools would choose based on the staffing and, the clientele as to what they can offer and what they cannot offer. So that's about the IB program. So yeah, over to Ramya.
Okay, thank you so much, Pragati and Khushbu and Sapna. So this is the last one, the Cambridge curriculum. So AS and A levels are what Cambridge calls the 11th and 12th grade qualifications. and it is a 2-year curriculum. So the AS level is, it's called the advanced subsidiary, we'll refer to it as AS level. It's similar to IB. If you look at the instruction hours between the AS and A level, it is AS tends to be half of that of A levels. So the A levels do have more topics, but unlike the IB, typically in Cambridge, it is spread out over 2 years in a way that you finish all your AS level curriculum in 11th grade, and then you move on to the A level topics in the 12th grade. And so students will typically do their AS level board exams at the end of 11th grade, and then the A level board exams for those components at the end of 12th grade. The structure, so students typically take 3 A levels. 3 A levels is sufficient to get you, it meets the requirements pretty much of any place worldwide, except for JEE mains in India, you do need, so for JEE mains, you absolutely need 4 A levels because they still follow the 5-subject requirement. Whereas for the competitive universities in US and Singapore, this 4 A levels is more something that we recommend because it just makes students more competitive for those universities. The grading scale is A star to E for A levels and A to E for AS level. And in the next slide, I'll clarify a little bit how this whole AS A level, combination works. This is just an overview. In terms of the equivalence granted by the Association of Indian Universities, IGCSE, which is the 10th grade qualification, 5 subjects in IGCSE are the equivalent of a 10th grade qualification from India. And 2 to 3 subjects at A levels is the equivalent of Indian class 12 qualification. Except, 2 subjects is almost never recommended unless you have severe challenges because most universities still expect 3 A levels. And then the AS level, which is sort of the, the easier level of English, is considered equivalent to the Indian board's 12th grade English. So students don't have to take A levels English, AS level is enough. Except because most universities in India do require you to have studied English for a certain number of years, students typically take that AS level English exam at the end of 12th grade, unlike the other AS levels, which they'll finish in 11th grade. So just to clarify that, in my mind, it feels like a convoluted structure always. So I find this a helpful way of looking at it. So the way A levels work is 50% of your final board results come from your AS level exams, and another 50% come from your A level exams that you take in 12th grade. And that gives you a final qualification of A levels. So here's an example. I'm sorry, just got distracted for a second. So for example, let's say a student picks, typically students will pick between 4 and 5 subjects at AS level. So our student Shreya, let's say she picks English, math, physics, chemistry, and psychology for her AS levels, and then studies all 5 subjects at AS level throughout grade 11, and then takes the board exams for all of them except English at the end of 11th grade. Now, let's say the student now decides that out of these, non-English 4 AS levels that she has, she doesn't want to continue she doesn't want to continue all 4 of them into the higher level. So she decides she wants to only do math, economics, and psychology at the higher level. And I'm sorry, I realized that the subjects changed here, but let's say maths, physics, and psychology at a higher level. So then she will study just these 3 subjects throughout 12th grade at the A level, and then takes the A level board exam at the end of 12th grade for just these 3 subjects, including AS level English. And then finally, the subject qualifications she will have, the final certificate that she gets will include the 3 A levels she took, which would be math, physics, and psychology, and then the additional 2 AS levels that she studied, which were chemistry and English. So that's kind of how the AS A level system works. Now, the great thing about, I always think of Cambridge almost as a bit of a bridge between sort of this uber progressive IB curriculum and the Indian national curriculum. in the sense that it offers a lot of depth and rigor, and it's very internationally recognized. And yet, it does offer the same kind of structure and the same kind of structure that the Indian boards do provide, right? It's not as open-ended and unstructured as IB. It also provides complete flexibility, much like I think Sapna and Khushbu said, Indian boards also provide that flexibility. I think somewhere in the Indian board schools maybe try to, except for the very progressive ones, many of them still try to impose that siloed way of, streaming subjects, whereas I think international schools, Cambridge schools are a bit more flexible on that front, but many of them do still, offer or recommend things in, they will say, okay, take math, physics, chemistry, right? That way of thinking is still there, but there is complete flexibility for student to take whatever they want if the school offers that flexibility. The board exams are spaced apart. This, so you will see that this is both a pro and a con for this board, because while some students really like it that you have, your boards are split across the 2 years, and it takes all the stress off, and even your grading is that way, right? Your 50% of your final boards come from your 11th grade boards. So it spreads it out, but this also means that every year, if you're in the Cambridge curriculum, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, all 3 grades are, board years, board exam years. So there is that stress. There is excellent recognition worldwide for the Cambridge curriculum. The US universities, especially, you can get credits for up to a year's worth of courses. And so that means you could graduate early, you could add on a second major without extending the time of your study and things like that. And then if you're looking at UK, of course, because the Cambridge is a UK board, it aligns really well with things like the UK assessments. UK universities are very familiar with it. So if you take, for example, the highest level of math, which is further math, and even some US universities may not entirely recognize what that is, but with the UK university, they will know, okay, this is very impressive because the student has taken that level of math. The not so great, the challenges are that, much like Pragati said, there are syllabus gaps. We, in my previous school, we did have our senior heads of the departments do in-depth analysis comparing the NEET and JEE syllabus and the CUET syllabus with the Cambridge syllabus. And there are gaps, especially in physics. I think bio aligns very well, but physics has the most number of gaps, followed by math and then chemistry. So there is, and students of mine who have taken the taken Cambridge and also simultaneously prepared for JEE, they do find that it is, you do have to do that extra work to bridge those gaps. And, that's definitely an issue. So with that, okay. So in terms of choosing a board, right? And this is where, we're hoping like this is really the more of the value for you guys here. It's both based on the primary thing we'll focus on today is really based on where you want to study and what you want to study. But obviously this is always about student fit. And so, even if something is a perfect fit in terms of your destination of choice, your learning style may not support it. And that is, something that we'll briefly allude to today, but it is a one-on-one conversation, right? And with the teachers in your school or, a counselor, and if you have one. Okay, so we've broken this up into a few broad areas of study. So we'll start with engineering. So on the left here is if you want to study engineering in India, what we recommend, what you might want to keep in mind. And if you want to study engineering abroad, what we recommend, what you might want to keep in mind. So in India, of course, even though there are private universities who will take the SAT, who will accept the SAT scores and things like that, JEE mains remains your primary mode of entry into engineering colleges. And the NCERT syllabus that CBSE and ISC follow, and actually ISC is something, I think there's less alignment, but it is more aligned with CBSE. And so, like we said, if you do IB and A levels, there are syllabus gaps. It can work for some private colleges who have their own entrance exams or who accept something like the SAT. And also because the international boards come with a lot of rigor in themselves, it can be very challenging to balance that preparation with your school coursework. So many of our kids who attempt these things being in an international curriculum do end up looking more seriously at some sort of a gap year where they can then focus more intensely on the competitive exam prep. If you are taking for the national boards, of course, because even though according to the AICTE and so on, chemistry is not a hardcore requirement, but the JEE mains paper still has chemistry as one of its components, and therefore math, physics, chemistry, and any other subject is fine, is what we recommend for Indian boards. For A levels, like we said, 4 A levels is a requirement. So we would say math, physics, chemistry, and you can pick anything really, like including global perspectives, that is acceptable, plus AS level English. And then for DP, we would say math AAHL, which is sort of the highest level of math, and then physics and chemistry HL. And then the other 3 subjects for SL can be based on, I mean, 2 would be languages, and then the last subject is based on your choice. For studying abroad, really, any of the boards will work fine. Because the Indian boards are also, just to bust a popular myth that, if you do Indian boards, like, for the most part, Indian boards are very well recognized. And places like the US do actually hold them in pretty high regard. So, it's fine. I think for the very, very selective universities, we do recommend that you might want to supplement the Indian boards with some sort of APs or with selective Olympiads, mainly to show that extra rigor and also to get credits if you're applying to the US. For the UK, like we said, we shouldn't even say highly selective here. I mean, it's really just Cambridge University that is being very stubborn about not accepting Indian boards. Whereas if you look, the other universities are fine with it. Medicine can be an issue with some Indian boards. So there, we would recommend international boards. And for other countries, for the most part, any board will work fine. And then for engineering, for studying engineering abroad, again, it's similar to the Indian recommendation that math, physics, and chemistry, if you're doing the national boards. The humanities, social science is really nice because in places like the US, they do like to, because they subscribe to a liberal education philosophy, they do like to see that breadth of thinking. And so we would recommend adding on, humanities or a social science. For A levels, again, like we said, for the competitive universities, 4 A levels, otherwise 3 is fine. And typically that would include either math or further math, and then 2 sciences. And here abroad, it doesn't have to be physics and chemistry. Physics is mandatory, like not mandatory, but it is, yes, practically almost mandatory for, engineering. But the third science doesn't have to be chemistry. If you're applying abroad, it can be bio, it can be computer science, and so on. And then for IBDP, similarly, that's why here, when you're looking at engineering abroad, we would say math and physics, and then any other science. So similar recommendation to the A levels. Guys, am I missing anything in here that you would like to add on for engineering before we move on to the next one? Okay. All right. So then over to you, Sapna, for medicine. Oh, I'm sorry.
Medicine I'm doing, right? Okay. Yeah. So there's a question on the chat box. I'll just start with that, which says, just a minute. Sorry, I'm in school and we are putting up an exhibition. Okay. There's a question about the RCSIs. RCSI does not accept CBSE as it is. Along with CBSE, you will have to take either the HPAT. So it has to be along with something else. Then they will accept a CBSE student. Otherwise, they will not accept only on the basis of CBSE. Okay. So if you want to study medicine in India, of course, NEET is the primary requirement. CBSE is one of the best boards to prepare for NEET. So that goes without saying. For the A level or the IBDP, you can consider taking these boards, these curriculums, and still study in India. provided you are either willing to take a gap year, because there is going to be extra requirement to study specifically for the NEET exam, because it is the curriculum, the A levels and the IBDP is already very, very challenging, and it is a little different, and the child will need extra time and resources to prepare. Right. There is syllabus gaps. So this is specifically, I think, for the A levels also, that there are syllabus gaps in what the NEET expects in physics and what is offered. So by and large, doing the A levels or the IBDP can be a bit of a challenge if you want to study medicine in India. Abroad, when you look at abroad, for US, it does not matter. US, it does not matter what you study at the undergrad level in the school, uh, if you want to do medicine, because in the US, medicine is a postgraduate program, which means what you do at the undergrad matters more. And you can go with any subjects, do an undergrad in literally any subject, even philosophy, language, anything, as long as you do the pre-med track. Pre-med track is not a degree. Pre-med basically means a set of requirements, and you can easily fulfill it no matter what you're majoring in. So that's the main requirement. Then in UK and Ireland, as we've already mentioned, you recommend A levels or IBDP for medicine. I would say in the UK, CBSE and the ICSE are accepted easily to do the medicine program in UK. Except at the University of Cambridge, right? Australia accepts all boards, again, because Australia by and large, considers medicine a PG program. Only 5 universities offer it as an undergrad degree. And for that, they require additional exams that you have to take to qualify for the undergrad programs in medicine. For India, the recommended subjects, of course, if you're doing this, the national boards is physics, chemistry, biology. English is mandatory. The 5th subject can be anything. It depends on you, how you want to play it. So the 5th subject, you could do math if you want to really challenge yourself and keep options of biotech, etc. open, or you could take a really more subject which is not academically challenging at all, like a PE or a music or something. So you can decide how you want to play the 4th subject. It does not matter so much. But the requirements are physics, chemistry, biology, and of course, English. For A levels, usually you would recommend 4 A levels. So math, physics, chemistry, and biology, and AS level English. While math is not required for NEET specifically, but because most kids who are taking A levels, applying for medicine, also looking at applying for medicine abroad, and math may be a preferred subject there. And also because I think math equips, because the physics in A level has a little bit of a gap, and the math helps in covering that gap for the NEET exam. Is that right, Ramya? And I'll let Ramya check in on that.
I'm sorry, I was busy answering questions in the chat. Could you
Okay,
please
I
repeat?
think we got it. Yeah. Then for the IBDP, again, it's physics at HL, bio at HL, chemistry at HL, and math can be, you can do AASL if you want. So that's the recommendation for India. Because in IBDP, you have to do math regardless, whichever level, you decide the level, but you can't drop math completely. For studying abroad, for India, you would take exactly the same way. You would take a physics, chemistry, and biology plus one other. That one other could be math if you're looking at competitive universities and looking at universities which prefer math as a subject for medicine. And there are a couple of those universities that want to see math if you're asking for admission to a medicine program abroad. At the A level, it would be physics, chemistry, biology, AS level English, and math for highly selective universities. And for IBDP, it would be biology HL, chemistry HL, and math at HL or SL level. So those would be our recommendations if you want to study medicine abroad. I'm sorry. There was so much of noise at the back. Yeah. Pragati is coming in that.
No, Sapna, I'm doing this. Yeah. Okay, now let's understand the business and econ courses, India and abroad. What do you need to study in terms of subjects, and how prepared each board can have you to apply for these courses. So, if you are in an Indian board and you want to study in India, then it is very clear that any board, any Indian board, you are good. Whether it's CBSC or ISC, you're absolutely fine preparing for those entrance exams for all private universities and even CUET. It is very, very aligned. Only one entrance exam, which is very tough for business and econ students, is IP MAT. If you are planning to do that, then definitely you have to push yourself beyond the basic course structure of CBSC and ISC both. And generally, students start preparing for that entrance exam just how it works for JEE, and NEET. They also start in grade 11. Subjects, I think one recommendation is you should keep your core or applied math. Ideally, core math. If not, then please at least keep applied math. Even in Indian universities, if you're applying for business and econ, a lot of universities have a mandate to have math, and they really appreciate you having math, because we have to understand that these courses, when we progress to university level, there is high level of math and statistics in these courses. So you don't want to lose out on some universities just because you don't have math. Okay, subject wise, I feel if we have math, then you can definitely go in for your accounts, economics, commerce, whatever your university is offering. But one thing also to be considered is that a lot of universities now also appreciate if you keep some hard sciences. At least one hard science is very appreciated if you can keep. All right, now talking about international universities, if you are an Indian student studying in Indian board and you want to apply abroad, then again, the thing is that you have to understand you should keep your math with you. Very, very important to keep math and one hard science if you can. It will really open doors to all selective and prestigious universities. Um, yeah. Now, other countries, if I talk about especially US, advanced placement is what we recommend to our CBSC and ISC students, because advanced placement just adds more academic credit, so that the universities you are applying to, which are highly selective, they appreciate that you have some more depth in your course structure and your knowledge. In UK, like we are all repetitively sharing, that except University of Cambridge, I think you are fine applying to all the universities in the UK. See, there are some 160 plus universities in UK and some 5,000 plus universities in US. So it is not possible that if you do not have a hard science, you are not going to find any university who's accepting you without, is not accepting you without math. But this is only our recommendation so that you keep more and more options open for your child. Now, let me come to abroad. If you are an Indian student studying international board, then our recommendation to you would be that you please keep at least 3 A levels, ideally 4 A levels, and your English can be at AS level. And with that, highly recommended again to keep your math. And if you can handle further math, which is extremely tough, very, very good for you. But if not for the math is definitely a mandate. And in IBDP, highly recommended to keep math at AAHL or AASL, or even AIHL is fine. But we do not recommend AISL. Don't come down to AISL. That is the main recommendation for you to keep for business and econ courses. Anything that you guys want to add?
No, that's perfectly fine actually for IB. Just I want to differentiate between what is AA and what is AI. AA is more geared towards sciences, and AI is more geared towards humanities, economics, and business. The topics are different. There are some overlapping topics, but the topics are different depending on the need of a science future or a humanities or a business economics future. So that is why AI is the least recommended math, because the universities don't recognize AISL as fulfilling a math requirement. But since IB makes it compulsory, so every child does math till grade 12, and hence those students who can't cope up with math will do AISL. So if you're wanting to study economics and business, that's a lot of numbers. Hence, AASL is the minimum that you should be doing.
Thank you, Pragati. And one more note, if anyone studying international boards and wanting to write CUET exam should know that there is a huge gap in the Indian economic side of econ. So that means there has to be an extra effort for our students to be able to do that. Also, international board students, according to me, I mean, my Cambridge students find it very tough balancing IP MAT preparation alongside Cambridge. So again, a gap year is recommended, or you want to sit one-on-one and explain the child whether the student is really ready for that rigor. Yeah. I think over to Pragati now for humanities.
Yep. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to request all the other experts to chime in wherever you feel I am not covering up enough. Humanities and social sciences actually has no prerequisites worldwide. So they are kind of, in terms of subject requirements, they are okay to take any subjects. But when it comes to, the Indian entrance exams like CUET, it helps to have subjects which align with what you are doing in the future or what you're applying for at university, because it helps you to select the right subjects for the CUET exams. It really helps, if you are an IB or a Cambridge student, because you have the pre-university skills like reading, writing, and research, which equips you really well for university studies in India as well as abroad. Now, in terms of subject choices, it is recommended that you take the humanities. You could take 2 humanities in group 5 in IB, or you could take 3 A-level subjects, in the areas of your interest. But historically, we see a lot of students who've done the sciences in the diploma program or, in any other national curriculum, who change over and go to humanities and social sciences later, because there are no hard and fast prerequisites in India or abroad. In terms of international, admissions, any board works fine. But if you're doing the national curriculum, CBSE or the ICSE or the state board, it is advised that you take the APs so that the universities can see that you are at par with all the other applicants from around the world, and you do some super curriculars. Super curriculars basically means an extension of whatever you are studying in the class beyond the classroom. Okay, so extracurricular is non-academic, super curricular mostly is academic in nature. So that will support an application internationally. Though IB and A levels are better recognized and give credit, but any board equips you pretty well for an international admission as long as you are, qualifying in terms of their grade requirements and a holistic admission if it's the US. For UK, again, any board is fine, except for the highly selective ones, which I think all of us are constantly, talking about. The recommended subjects, again, for international is the same as domestic. There's no difference in terms of subject choices, but there's only one subject, where if it is a BSc in psychology instead of a BA, because psychology, economics are some subjects which are considered STEM as well as, social science. There would be a requirement of a science that you've done in your grade 11 and 12 from any board that you are studying. So that's the only, thing that you need to keep in mind if the child wants to do a BSc in psychology or a BSc in economics instead of a BA. Then you need to have a hard science. That's it. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah. Ramya, do you want to cover the creative one? Or should I just go ahead and cover?
Oh, please go ahead if you're fine.
Okay. Yeah. I think all of us are fine. Um, so again, similar to, the humanities or the social sciences, the creative fields also do not have hard and fast prerequisites. Any board works fine. In most of the, admissions, India or abroad, depending on the program that they are applying for, a portfolio might become an important part of the application. What they've learned in terms of the creative fields might become important. For example, if you're applying for, say, a visual art or Bachelor of Fine Arts or a fashion design program or fashion business, what the university is looking for is, have you done some kind of work before joining? And that could be in school or outside school, both. Doesn't really matter whether it was a taught curriculum in the school program. The portfolio can be created in or outside school. So though we recommend that they do creative arts, if it is offered, visual art, filmmaking, sculpturing, whatever is offered by the school. If not, then it can be done beyond the school as well. Like the IB would offer, a creative subject. It's advisable to take it. Their portfolio by default gets prepared. But if it is not offered, then you can do it in your holidays and in your free time and create your portfolio beyond. So just like the humanities, you can choose any subject that you like and just follow your passion in terms of, the creative pursuits. Do you want to add anything? Sapna, Khushbu, Ramya?
Yeah,
I
I
just
think
want to say that even if your school doesn't offer, or even if you don't decide to not take what they offer in a creative subject, at least in my school, I've seen that the clubs are a great place to fulfill that requirement. So if you're in the photography club, you can be in any of the fine arts or any club and get that work done, regardless of whether you're taking it up as a subject or not.
I was going to add that, okay, Khushbu, actually, this was your
Go
point
ahead.
from
Go
yesterday.
ahead. Go
Please.
ahead, Ramya. Go ahead.
No, I think some branches of design, like industrial design, or okay, like in some universities, this is not true for, and that's why we put this disclaimer at the bottom of every slide that, there are thousands, tens of thousands of universities worldwide, and there'll always be an exception to this. But some design courses which have a more, sort of technical element might require math or a science, or maybe a math and a science. So please do your research as well in the specific universities that you want to, that you're interested in.
Yeah, same for architecture also. The requirements may actually differ
Ye-
hugely across different countries and universities.
Yes, absolutely. I think so. In India itself, it's been a very confusing up and down for us in the counseling space, because it was for the longest time the Council of Architecture said math, physics, chemistry. Then chemistry became it was replaced by any other science. And please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know what the latest
Right
is, right?
now, it is chemistry can be replaced with about 6 or 7 subjects. So it's biochemistry, which most schools are not offering, but also accountancy for some reason. So they've really made it very vague.
Yeah.
But yes,
And if you
so there are.
look at the course structure in places like the US, there is a preference for architecture courses to also have a heavy element of humanities. So that is something that they value more than, let's say, chemistry, which tends to be, something that historically, because in India, architecture is always with the engineering colleges, there's still a tendency to do physics, chemistry, math as the subject. So yes, I think Sapna, over to you for
Yeah.
the
I just want to
IB.
add a couple of points here. So, a lot of students come to me and say that I love design as a career, but I'm not good at drawing. So, can I still go ahead with it? So, I think it's really good for all of us to know that design careers do not require drawing specifically. And now with AI, there is so much of prompting available that, whatever child has to be creative, and that is more important than actually be able to draw. Another very important for any board that we have spoken about today is to maintain good grades. I mean, if you are in any board, that doesn't guarantee that you will get into the selective universities abroad just because you come from IB board or just because you come from Cambridge or whichever Indian board. I think it's also very important and very, very important to maintain your grades in whichever board you are for your selective applications. Okay, Sapna, please go ahead.
Absolutely. So I totally agree. I think all of us totally agree with what Khushbu said about the grades. Grades have to be maintained. Okay. Want to very briefly talk about student fit. I think broadly speaking, what we're trying to explain is that when you're selecting a board, you must truly understand one, what your child's strengths and personality is like, right? So if a child who is not very comfortable in being left at a loose end, requires very specific instructions and very specific structured information, you would not want to go for a board in which literally it's like an open-ended discussion and open-ended assignment every time. All right. So you would not want to do that. Then if a child is not able, we have to also see what are the other demands that a child has, right? So if a child is very sports focused into something very, very specific that they really want to excel in, then how much time is being left to do a program which would require many extra work hours outside of school? So you need to kind of focus on the child's personality, the child's ability to handle abstractions, the vague, kind of like a little more scope for their own discovery and their own understanding of things. And of course, then of course, I think another factor that I would like to consider is, how comfortable parents are and how much time they have uh, to support the child in their work, especially in the beginning. So many times I've seen parents who are looking at the IBDP kind of curriculum and they feel like, oh, there's just so much of, research work, so much of it's assignment based, right? So for every assignment, there's some kids who are able to do it completely by themselves and then they do great, but there's some kids who require more help and support. And then whether you have the time to provide that help and support. For learning style, I would like Ramya, if you can come in and explain what exactly you want to kind of say, and anybody else who wants to add here.
I think it's, some of it is what you have alluded to, right? I think, um, since I think Pragati and our own kids are in the IB system, and among my kids, I see the difference between my individual kids also. I think the IB in general, I feel, it does kids who are very, very independent learners really, and that's the philosophy of the education board as well, right? And I think they are just able to manage because the assignments are open-ended. It's a lot of student research that they have to do on their own, and so if they generally like that way of learning, then that's great for them. One of my other children, I mean, would much rather go to a textbook and learn from that, right? And so likes that structure. So I think it was, I think, subsumed by some of the stuff you've already said. Pragati, anything
Yeah.
you want?
I just wanted to add, in terms of learning style, all curriculums cater to all learning styles actually. So whether it is a visual learner, kinesthetic learner, any kind of learner, any curriculum will cater to it. So learning style wise, it's fine. But if a child is curious, wants to read and understand things, is self-initiated, is driven, because international curriculums would be more inquiry based, it would be more exploratory, it would be more application based reading, writing, and examinations too. So there's a lot of things that the child has to do independently. And if that is the case, then I think, the international works well. But if they need more hand holding, more structure, more instructions, then I think the national boards work out better. So it's about finding the best fit.
Also, can I add one perspective coming from a tier 2 city? Now, there are growing number of schools who have started offering or who wish to offer Cambridge and IB board curriculums. But some of these schools are not able to get the right resources. So, when you are choosing this curriculum, please also check whether the school will be able to give you the right teachers who are trained to transact that curriculum. Trust me, I've seen just because of lack of right teachers, students are not able to get grades and they are competent to get grades, but that's the challenge. So please keep your eyes open, parents, before you take this decision. Check the environment and logistics as well.
Such an important point, really, because also, especially, I think, and I don't mean to single out IB, I don't know, there's a bias there for me as a parent too, but I think because it does have so much dependence on the teacher, unlike, let's say, the Indian boards or Cambridge, you do absolutely, like, the last thing you want to do is be stuck getting tuitions for, 4 out of the 6 subjects and
Yeah.
spending your time. Okay, this is
So
the
I think
last slide. And
I
then,
think the important thing when we are selecting a board, I also ask parents to always look at the schools in the city and really determine whether you have a great school for that particular board. I mean, don't go for a board if you don't have a school that has experience in delivering that board. I mean, that I think is a thumb rule. Don't try, I mean, any board will do, but your school should have experience and good teachers to teach that board.
okay, and this is, I think, one of our last or maybe your last slide. So if you are transitioning between boards, right, these are, okay, and this again, the four of us have had discussion that this is very broad, right? There are differences between even, we have clubbed happily the international boards together, but there is a big jump from going from IB to Cambridge, vice versa. And I'm sure there are, issues going from CBSE to ISC and vice versa. But broadly speaking, switching from Indian boards to international boards, and I'm sorry, I think the arrows got flipped here. That is entirely my mistake. I apologize. So on top is going from Indian boards to international boards. So there is, in the international boards, more focus on writing and analytical skills, especially writing, right? And in humanities and English, this is something that kids coming from having worked in a multi-board school, we have seen this over the years that the kids do struggle a little bit with that aspect of it. It is, more a different set of skills with the international board, so it does take some time. And none of these are insurmountable issues, by the way. Our kids do just fine moving between these boards, but there will be that period of maybe even up to a semester, which can take up to a semester of settling in. And then economics, and this morning there was a discussion in our WhatsApp group about that. There can be, a bit of a challenge if you haven't studied it, but it's really not, it's not a huge, it's not an insurmountable issue. Similarly, moving from international boards to Indian boards, students, I think one of the biggest thing is the numeracy thing, because kids in the international boards are used to having the formula sheets, in chemistry, the equation sheets. They almost never have to memorize anything. And I think the Indian boards do demand more of that. And so, and also calculation, just doing that math. But though that is changing too, right, Kushbu? I think the Indian boards now do allow calculators for certain components.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. But also, and by the way, I mean, rote memorization, let me just say, we act as if international boards don't have it at all, but
It
my son
has.
just finished his
It has.
bio, exam, and there is some subjects you cannot get away without learning it by heart. You're not going to be able to derive, first order, like sitting there and deriving the names of these things. So
Yeah.
that exists to some extent in all the boards.
Can I just add something here?
Yeah.
Transitioning from the national to the international is actually easier compared to transitioning from the international to the national, because the style of learning, the style of teaching, the expectations, they all change. Whereas an Indian curriculum student can build on the memorization skills, for example, or the numeracy skills that they already have, or they're used to rigor. So they can build on those skills further and hence transition a little more easily compared to the reverse. Because the international board kids, most of the time, are not used to memorizing at all. Though it is there, but there are a lot of people who don't know how to memorize 5 pages, for example, or they don't memorize formula, they use calculators. The IB board has e-assessment, so online exams. So transitioning from international to domestic is more difficult than the other way around.
And
So
Pragati, on this note, there's a question. So, and I'll throw this back to you because I know your school sees a lot of intake from different boards. So,
yes.
switching from Cambridge to DP, what is your take on that?
Absolutely fine. The school that I worked for in Tanzania earlier before coming back to India had the PYP, IGCSE, and the IB route. So, IGCSE actually prepares them very well for the IB. The only thing is that, Ramya, as you were saying earlier, it takes a few weeks, sometimes a few months to transition in terms of the teaching learning styles. But they do pretty well transitioning from IGCSE to IB. In fact, any curriculum can do well in the IB as long as they are inquirers, readers, writers, open-minded, and are looking for application-based learning and teaching. As long as they, have that, which I think a majority of the students in any curriculum have, a lot of Indian schools do an amazing job of including all these in the, CBSE, ICSE, or even state board schools. So I think they can transition very easily as long as they have all those parameters and are open to learning.
Yeah. On that note, the reverse, where if you switch from MYP to Cambridge, we do find there are a couple of challenges. One is the timing that creates actually a big hurdle because at least it depends on the city. Here in Hyderabad, many Cambridge schools start their academic year in March, end of March. So by the time you get to June, the start of the proper academic year, you're already 1 month into the curriculum, whereas IB schools, don't finish until their board exams in MYP until May. And that 1 month can be really challenging to cover. So that is something to keep in mind if you're switching from an IB MYP school into either a national board school in certain cities. I don't know if this is how it works in every city, but at least.
A lot of schools also offer the bridge program themselves. So I know that a lot of schools were taking big intakes into the IBDP or into the Cambridge program in 11th will offer like a bridge, a one
Yes.
month or a 2 month bridge program. So most of it. Uh, anything
Okay.
else?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to share one experience that so you might come across students who are in international boards, and with how much ever hard work and time they put in, they are not able to score well. So I think I just want to open it to Pragati and Ramya to really learn that, is it okay for them to go back to an Indian board if they feel they will be more comfortable there rather than keep struggling here and, not even, I mean, they get so frustrated because they are not able to get the grades, and then that will impact applications.
It is perfectly fine, as we are constantly saying, it's about finding your fit. So if your fit is not the IB, then you should ideally move out. We in our school also sometimes counsel out the students who want to do the NEET. We tell them, see, maybe IB is not going to prepare you for that entrance exam in terms of subject prerequisites as well as the exam skills, right? Or if they are looking for more structure or dealing with 7 subjects, including the theory of knowledge, is tough. It's very broad. And then you have your research piece, and then you're also expected to do a lot of service and all those events and things like that. So sometimes time management is the issue and they're not able to score. It's perfectly fine to switch, but then they will have to work on the skill requirements there. For example, numeracy and memorization, or the rigor, which is of a different kind, right? So they will need to transition back and learn those skills. It's fine to transition. We've seen people doing that historically from our school as well. So I personally feel sometimes they do much better in a structured program because there is, something which they are aligning to more.
Right.
We will take some audience questions because I know Pragati has to leave
I
at
wanted
5.
to quickly add, because I think this RCSI and University of Cambridge, who's accepting CBSE, ICSE or not, has been going on a lot. I think we oversimplified when we said they don't accept CBSE. It's not that they don't accept CBSE or ICSE. They will accept them with 5 APs, right? There are many kids who are doing APs regardless. They're doing them with CBSE, they're doing them with IB, they're doing them with Cambridge. So if your student is doing the AP exams, then they're even University of Cambridge will accept them regardless of whether they're doing the national boards or not. So just wanted to put it out there.
I'll throw this question to Khushbu. So I think ICSE, the question was, will PCMB be too much for kids taking?
PCMB, yes, it's going to be too much.
Okay.
Definitely. So physics, chemistry, math, bio, it is definitely a lot of rigor. But it's not that, students don't do it at all. But maybe if a batch of, say, 160 kids and 30 kids are science kids, I would see only 1 or 2 students going in for it and then actually managing good grades in it also. Some children, they go for it and then at the end of grade 11, they say, okay, we want to drop out of one science.
I have a slightly different perspective. I think it is very much manageable if they are not also doing NEET and JEE. So the question is actually PCMB along with NEET or JEE. I think that is too much. But if the child is off the competitive exam track, so they're not doing coaching classes, let's just put it like that, then a PCMB may be manageable. Of course, depends on the child. It's not easy, but it is possible. If they're doing the coaching class, please keep out of it.
Yeah, but there is also a difference in CBSE curricula and
Yeah,
ISC. So
yeah,
ISC is
it is more.
more depth.
Yeah.
So the ISC students definitely find it challenging. Coaching or no coaching, it is definitely challenging.
There are 2 questions if the group is okay, I'll take. So is it advisable for us? Oh, so this is actually, I think, Sapna, you can also take. Is it advisable for a CBSE student to write A-level exams as private exams? In general, private candidates, so the acceptability is very iffy, right? Technically, yes, in India, it's not at all advisable because kids who sit the Cambridge exams as private candidates, Indian universities just don't accept. Maybe some privates, again, some exceptions, but by and large, no. If they're targeting Oxford or Cambridge, I think, Sapna, this is
So one, you cannot target both. So you have to decide between the two,
no,
right?
let's assume or is the
So no,
question.
so if you're Oxford is accepting CBSE as it is. You don't need
Yeah,
anything
so you don't
extra,
need to
right?
actually write the
So
levels.
just go for Oxford. I mean, forget
Yeah.
Cambridge. Or go for
Correct.
AP exams along with CBSE. That would
Yeah,
be the
that's
easier
probably
thing to
much
do
more
rather
doable.
than do A levels, which will be much more complicated.
Yeah. Actually, by the way, this routinely happens if you look at the big schools, some of these big schools in Delhi and all that have a history of sending kids to Ivies and Oxford and Cambridge. It's actually pretty, if you're a good student, and I've seen this with my kids, if you generally are a good, let's say, STEM student, right, doing math, physics, chemistry, taking 3 APs in those subjects becomes really straightforward for you. You just have to, what do you call it, register for the exam and so on. So on the CP, the other IBCP, because right now we're in the process of a lot of exploration because my school is, looking into it. And so I'll say it's a very open-ended question, Aruna. Thoughts on the IBCP? It is very new. So this last week, I was in conversation with a couple of school counselors whose schools have had their first and second batch of placements with the CP. So, one is please look at the IBO website. I mean, it lays out CP pretty well in terms of the structure. In terms of the placements, the general idea that I have got from other people's experience is that US, the acceptance is probably the highest among all the regions. It is not still fully. So when we talk to other counselors or even, consultants, the most selective universities still are not, they're on the fence about CP. UK universities, again, because the CP only requires you to do 2 to 3 DP subjects, they are still, many of them are not either not accepting or requiring 3 HLs, which then sort of defeats some of the purpose of the DP. So, sorry, of the CP. And then India acceptance is really problematic. I think some private new age universities are more comfortable with it, but even that there are exceptions. Flame, for example, which is a very popular university among the international school crowd, is not accepting CP. Singapore, again, they're saying it's a case by case basis. And so the bottom line with CP right now is that it seems really great. And I think for a very focused student who knows that, okay, I want to do business, or I know I want to do design, and I want to get that hands-on experience, it can be a great option. But the acceptance, because it was only rolled out, 2, 3 years ago, I think 4 years ago now, in 2021, the acceptance by universities worldwide still remains, a challenge. So I hope that. Sorry. Okay. So there are questions. Okay. So law, I think, Sapna, you already answered. Do you want to?
Ramya, answer Deepti's question about
Oh, yeah.
math
Okay.
and further math.
So, yeah. So for university admissions abroad, weightage difference, I mean, so honestly, I think UK is probably where it makes a significant difference. And even in the UK, I would say it is mainly in your Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, UCL, those 4 universities that it makes a lot of difference. Not even a lot. It makes a difference, I will say.
LSC.
Anecdote-
LSC likes further
Oh,
math.
LSE, sorry, I forgot to mention. LSE does like further math. They will say, oh, if your school doesn't offer, but anecdotally, just from our experience, we definitely have found that they have a preference for further math. And so I think UK is where US, I'm not convinced that it makes a huge difference. I mean, I don't know, Sapna, Khushbu, you can, contradict, but
US, you can cover if you don't have further math, but you have a great SAT score or you have some AP calculus. I mean, you basically have to show you're good at math, and you
yeah.
can show them in many ways. You don't have to have that subject.
Also, US has the tendency to check what is the school offering. If the school is not offering further math, then they're absolutely fine with it. So my students in all selective prestigious universities, none of them did further math and they were fine.
Yeah. Same here. I think with a couple of exceptions, because the school I was with didn't even start offering further math till 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's fine.
Can I add
APs
something
were-
here? Like every school would have a school profile actually, which will describe what the school has to offer, as Kushbu was saying. So they would look at the school profile and see the context of the child. And based on that context, they are going to take a decision. They are not going to deprive a student of an admission if the school has not offered that program to the child at all. So in US, it doesn't disadvantage them as long as the school profile accompanies the application of the child.
There's another question that Dipti has about how many APs.
APs for A
Yeah,
levels.
I think we have lots of answers
Yeah,
to
we
that.
have so much to say, but I think we can all agree that really, if you're doing IB and or
Or
A
A
levels,
level, you
you
don't
get
It's
require.
this.
required.
Yeah, the reason to generally do APs is about threefold, right? One is you're showing rigor in the subject. Second is you're getting credits at university level. I think actually these two, I don't know why I said three, right? Am I missing one?
The third would be to show breadth. So
Yes.
supposing my school, so two ways. In the US, supposing I'm on the PCM track in India, and I want to show that I can handle humanities very well too. I could do a humanities subject in AP just to show that. Because I could do history or something, which otherwise in my school I can't do history along with PCM, but here I can do it. So that, or in the other sense, if my school is not offering a subject. So my school is not offering further math, right? So I can kind of extend myself in math or something like that, or not offering world history, something like that, right? So that would be the third reason.
I
By
think what
and
Pragati
large,
said
the dictum
was,
is that I've been to a lot of even Ivy League universities in the US. They all say we don't want the child to do AP exams. So from a CBSE school also, they say we don't want AP exams. So AP exams are almost never mandatory for a US university, no matter how competitive it is. Um, the super curriculars can boost up your academic profile. So if you're doing well in your school, you're doing really well at school, that's more than enough. Along with some, you show that you're engaged in the subject deeply in some way or the other. It doesn't have to be through an AP exam or through doing an A level or something. So whatever curriculum you are in is good enough for almost all US universities. Please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong there. In UK, a couple of universities may have a couple, but these are really limited to those one or two universities. Anyway, I mean, how many kids are getting into the University of Cambridge? Tell me that, you know. So it's like a really, really minimal, minuscule. Do not change your plans based on that.
Yeah, and one university folk was joking with me that in India, all the students have made APs as an extracurricular. So please don't do that.
yeah.
It's not
Um,
something you require to do at all, actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, I mean, so a friend of mine went to a very, very like famous, legendary, like one of these independent consultants. And I really, this kind of thing is worrisome, right? And all four of us as school counselors will tell you, like, that person's guidance was you can do APs provided you're already getting a 42 on 42 in IB. I was like, but why? Why would you want to do it? So please don't fall for some of these, like, really
I think I
this
love the
folk.
way one of the universities explained it, which is like they look at it as buckets, especially US universities. If your academic bucket is already full, so if you're in ICSE and you're like killing it at 90% plus, 95% plus, your academic bucket already has enough. You don't need to keep overpiling it. So don't bother. As long as you're doing well enough, really well within your own curriculum, you're good.
I'm gonna at least switch off the recording, and I know we have to probably, I don't know, Pragati, I think you do have to leave. So I'm gonna say the thank yous, and then if you want, a couple of us can hang back and take your questions if you have more. But I really, really want to thank Khushbu and Pragati for coming and sharing their expertise and time so generously. So thank you so much. I think Sapna and I are really grateful that you're doing this for our community. And we really enjoy working with you guys. So thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Ramya and
guys.
Sapna, for
Yeah,
inviting us. And I think
yeah.
I was very excited that I'm going to learn so much from this session while we are here in this Zoom room. And that's what I did. Thank you, Pragati. Learned so much from you as usual.
Same,
And
same. And
and
congratulations, Sapna and Ramya, for guiding teens. You are an inspiration for so many of us counselors out there. So let's see that guiding teen keeps growing and more people are impacted. So thank you so much.
absolutely.
So
Parents,
much.
I
I
would
think,
take your leave
yeah,
now
we've taken care
and
of questions
hopefully,
also.
yeah. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.